Good morning, Littleton and surrounding areas, and whoever's listening. This is Dick Alberini, the Littleton Historical Museum curator, and it is now 10:30. And I do not know how long this program is going to go, but because there's a lot of information. Today's program is going to deal once again with the 1918 influenza pandemic. Now, I am just going to show the slideshow and talk over it. Put this together yesterday. It all came from September 1918 from the Littleton Courier. Now, something I mentioned probably in the last program is that the Courier not only covered news in Littleton, but it covered some news in Vermont and a lot of towns around, as far down south of us as Piermont. So there's a lot of information. Now, as I mentioned in the last program, for those of you who caught it, and it's, once again, remember, it's on Facebook for a long time, that the pandemic hit the United States in the fall of 1918. But it was actually the second time that the pandemic hit, that the influenza hit. It hit in March, but there were less deaths, less illnesses in March in the area. So I'm just going to start and go ahead with this. I'd like to pick up a couple of, or say a couple of things here first. As you know, most of you know me, I can talk a hungry dog off a meat wagon. So I am going to try to stay on task. I received a note from Jeannie Wood, and oh, look, people are hitting in. There we go. Good morning, Terry. And there's Jonathan. Good morning, Jonathan, Michelle, Aaron. I received a note from Jeannie Wood. Her grandmother was born September 20th, 1918, and still lives in Lancaster, 102 years old. So we may end up coming across her grandmother, if her grandmother was born in Littleton, a birth announcement. So I think that might be kind of an interesting thing. Also, another neat thing to keep in mind is I'm doing a program on family stories. People, like, for example, my uncle died, he was a teenager in 1918 of the influenza pandemic. So I am collecting stories. So do me a favor, send me a brief story. It's Alberini, ALBERINI, at roadrunner.com. Send me a brief story if you have a relative or if they had told you stories about the pandemic. I'd like to put this all together. All right, so let's go ahead with the slideshow. This is mainly statistical. Well, obviously, it's statistical. Okay, so here's some information. Started in March of 18, went away, and then came back with a fury. Death statistics. Okay, and these are not indicative. These are just. I got these numbers out of the Littleton Town reports. And so the reports did not list the cause of death. So in January, there were eight deaths, February 9, March 10. You see the little bit of an increase, not much. April 6, May 7, June 5, July 7, August 5. Now we're getting into September. We're back up to 10. Now look at October, okay? 31. And I counted and checked out, 22 were under the age of 40. Remember, this pandemic, the influenza, hit youngsters. And to me, at my age, anyone under 65 is a youngster, but this was under the age of 40, and it hit teenagers, middle teens to the 40s. Then you can see how November to December just like didn't bottom out, but I mean a drastic change in deaths in the town. Now this is only the town of Littleton because I don't have access to Bethlehem, Franconia, Dalton, Whitefield, or anywhere else. This is just the town of Littleton. So it's a snapshot of one town in one area. All right. Good morning, George. Good morning, Jim and Candy. There's Ann Wells. There's Marie. You'll be hearing more about Marie a little bit later. Okay. I also took and put it together so it makes a better visual. So you can see in the blue how we go along starting in January, and then here's October, how it spiked. So those were in the 1919 town report from the vital statistics from 1918. All right. Now, in doing the research, I have the Littleton Courier, thanks to the Littleton Public Library. I have the newspapers from 1850 to 1949. And the Courier started up in 1895 as a piece of information here. And I did a search. I figured the easiest way of finding influenza is to do a search. And thank goodness for a searchable program. So September 1918, the word influenza appeared 16 times in the Courier. And once again, in September, there were 10 deaths listed. October, the word influenza appeared 192 times in the Courier. A huge increase. And once again, there were 31 deaths. Now, what I did is, you probably won't be able to read these, but these are the deaths registered. These are copied. This is a scan. I scanned the town records for 1918. And if you notice, this is January through April. So if you go along, okay, you can see that April, there's another April down here. All right, then I did May through September, and this is about average for the numbers. All right, now you hit September, and one thing I wanted to pull up here is, if you look, like, for example, in September 1st, you had Nelson McLeod. He was 5 years old. I don't know the cause of death for Nelson. But then there's Lizzie Little. She was 79. Pluma River, 74. Henry Vashon, 71. And Julia Goodall at 45. So if you look at this, it really didn't start to hit the younger people, the teenagers and those in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. You have Julia. You also have Nelson, but I do not know Nelson's cause of death. Now, here is October. Now, going over once again to finish off September, okay, you can see as we get to the middle of September and working our way through, you can see Elizabeth Whitcomb, 40. You can see, now there's Edwin Langford, who was 65. Edward Cummings, 67. All right. Laura was 8. Annie Folsom, 26. You can start seeing in September, you can see the ages dropping. Now you get into October, and this is the entire list for the month of October. And you can see that there were 2 deaths on the 2nd of October, 2 on the 3rd, 2 on the 5th, 2 on the 6th, 1 on the 8th, 3 on the 10th, 2 on the 12th, 1 on the 13th, 3 on the 14th, 2 on the 17th, 1 on the 18th, 1 on the 20th, 2 on the 22nd, 3 on the 25th, 1 on the 26th, 2 on the 27th, and 1 on the 31st. So there's been a day or 2 skipped here and there, okay? But you also go over to the side, you go over to the ages over here, and you can see that you have 26, 1. Lily was only 7 months old. 49, 42, 40, 17, 37, 28, 32, 21. Well, this person made it to 65. 33, 28, 36, 26, 2. 20, 25, 59, 31, 18, 26, 2, 22, 33, 74, 64, 21, 78, 34. So you can see the average ages in there are running into they're young. They're very young. So this came right out of the Courier. It was a copy and paste. This is from Influenza, how to avoid it and how to care for those who have it. Following our suggestions from the Massachusetts State Department of Health. Number 1, keep out of the sick room unless attendance is necessary. Well, I'm going through these and you're reading along with me. Think about today, okay? I'm trying to keep things in perspective by doing this program. Think about today. Good morning, Sandra. She's waving. And there's Mary Louise, Grande Maison. Good morning. Number 2, do not handle articles coming from the sick room until they are boiled. Allow no visitors and do not go visiting. Number 4, call a doctor for all inmates who show signs of beginning sickness. 5, see to it that your children are kept warm and dry both night and day. 6, have sufficient fire in your house to disperse the dampness. 7, open your windows at night if cool weather prevails. Add extra bed clothing. 8, avoid the person who coughs or sneezes. My gosh, it sounds like social distancing. Number 9, wash your hands before eating. Well, that's a good thing to do, even if there is an influenza epidemic. Number 10, make full use of all available sunshine. 11, should you cough or sneeze, cover nose and mouth with a handkerchief. 12, sleep is necessary for well-being. Avoid overexertion. Eat good, clean food. That's really interesting, too, because things we've been seeing on television is people need their rest. They need to be rested. Another thing about eat the good, clean food, my wife went food shopping yesterday, and when she came home, we disinfected everything. We opened up cereal boxes, took out the little bags inside, put aside, threw the cardboard away. 13, keep away from houses where there are cases of influenza, social distancing. 14, if you have had influenza, stay in bed until your doctor says you can safely get up. 15, allow no one else to sleep in the same room with the sick. And this came from the Relief Committee of the Littleton Red Cross. Really interesting. You look at this, we can compare a lot of this right here to this date in time. Spanish flu, here's another. All right. Now, one thing that I saw on Facebook this morning was be care of quack medicine. I mean, we do have quackery. People are saying, well, if you do this, you won't get the coronavirus. Well, this is an ad from the Littleton Courier. Spanish influenza rages in the United States. Thousands of cases reported with many deaths. Those who are most susceptible to it. Frutatives, the wonderful fruit medicine, greatly helps to resist this disease. I'll tell you, it didn't amount, it was about as useful as screen doors on a submarine. People tried to sell their stuff. And if it didn't sell before the influenza, I'm sure that it sold during. All right. Here's another ad. Look out for Spanish influenza. At the first sign of a cold, take cascara quinine. Standard cold remedy for 20 years. 1 tablet, safe, sure, no opiate. Break it up. Break up a cold in 24 hours. Relieve grip in 3 days. Money back if it fails. The genuine box has red top with Mr. Hill's picture at all drugstores. Yep. Like I said, it's 1918, and this is what people were looking at. Hey, Jeremy. September 19th to the 26th. Here's news from the Courier, and it's everything about all the news that was about the influenza. September 19th to the 26th, 1918. Telephone operators, double duty, 4 at home with influenza. Well, sounds a lot like today. Next one, the Littleton Public Schools and their premier theater have been closed for the remainder of the week in order to prevent, if possible, the spread of the Spanish influenza. Several cases have been reported in different parts of the town, and many have had hard colds, probably caused by the rainy weather in the past 2 weeks. The school board held an important meeting Tuesday evening and decided that it would be wise to keep the schoolhouses empty until better weather was in sight. I find that interesting, and if you notice, I put better weather in red. I think we're all looking forward to better weather. Okay. Remember, if you're watching this, let people out there know this is happening. But also, it's saved there. Okay, so you can come back and take a look at it. Well, look at that, little hearts bubbling up. Isn't that great? All right. Well, we talked about schools. There we go. All right, and this school is the Kilburn School, and people who are local are familiar with the name Daisy Bronson. The middle school in Littleton is called the Daisy Bronson. I'm trying to get this thing so the pictures are a little bit bigger, and that's not going to work, but what the heck, we'll give it a shot. Daisy Bronson was the teacher, and the middle school is the Daisy Bronson Middle School. And this was on Oak Hill Avenue. For those who don't know where it was, if you know where the high school is, up on Oak Hill Ave, the main entrance now, and there's a parking lot just below it, and also where the cafeteria is. Well, that's where the Daisy Bronson School was. It was more out at the corner, down toward the parking lot. All right, this is the Mitchell School on Bronson Street. And the Mitchell School is still standing. It's apartments. Okay? So just to give an idea, when I brought up about the schools, I thought, I'll put some pictures of the schools in. And there's Littleton High School. All right? And actually, that is the high school during the pandemic of, I put 1916, and I was wrong on that. The date is this school was torn down, and the new school, what we have now, was built in 1926. So this is the school where students went during the 1918 pandemic, and it is the school that was closed. Now, if you notice the street, that's School Street, and I think this photograph was taken before School Street was named School Street. And over here, where that is, that stone wall, the library and the Pollyanna statue right now is like, Pollyanna statue is like right about where that frame is. So anyway, I'm throwing a little local history in here to try to break up. All right, now I talked about the Premier Theater. Well, folks, this is the Northern Hotel and the Premier Theater. Okay, the whole thing burnt to the ground in 1924. To give local Littleton folk to give local Littleton folk an idea of where this is. You see that? That right there, the awning. This building burnt also in 1924. Where that awning is where the Coffee Pot Restaurant is located today. Okay? This building down here at the end, okay, building is still there. Jackson Street is just below it. And right here, there's a Tuxedo Rental and Jackson Corner currently. So that's where the movie theater was. Just throwing a little of the local history in to break things up and give you some perspective of what was going on in our fair town. All right. Well, not only did everything happen, not everything happened in Littleton. Woodsville, as a means of preventing any further spread of the influenza, which has been steadily increasing, the Board of Health for the town of Haverhill issued a notice as follows. All churches, schools, theaters, moving picture shows, places of amusement, pool rooms, bowling alleys, and public gatherings in the village of Woodsville are hereby ordered closed until further notice. All children under 16 years of age must remain home. Okay? Then another little piece from Littleton. The baby weighing campaign. I guess every year they went out and weighed babies in the town, probably to make sure our babies were being babies, I guess. I'm going to do something that might be, just pardon me for a second. I'm going to do a slight adjustment here. There we go. I'm looking at this and it's like, oh my goodness, I have you looking at an angle, and now I'm cockeyed. Okay, now I'll get this straight. Hold on, folks. All right, there we go. Good. I think that's a little bit better. The baby weighing campaign for Littleton has been indefinitely postponed on account of the prevalence of influenza, as the danger of exposure of hundreds of children is not safe. Plans have been completed to make a swift and thorough survey of the approximately 500 children in Littleton under 6 years of age. 1918, folks, 1918, we had approximately 500 children under the age of 6 in this town. All right, and I don't remember offhand the population. I mean, right now we're close to 6,000. I think the population was between right around 4,000 back then. So we're looking at, doggone, almost 10% of the population. Lisbon. Can't leave Lisbon out. The attendance in the public schools has not yet suffered from Spanish influenza. Lisbon had school. So we know, according to this, Lisbon was kind of a safe haven for a little period of time. Sugar Hill. At this time, though, I want to remind you, Sugar Hill was also it was Lisbon at the time. Sugar Hill, news has been received from Private Harold Smith that he is ill with Spanish influenza at Camp Upton, Long Island. Now, I want you to understand something, and I brought this up at our last program when I talked about Private Henry Francis Green, who died aboard the SS President Grant, the transport ship, to France. I mean, there were 130 deaths on the ship from New York, Hoboken, New Jersey, to France, and he was one of them. But to give an idea of our soldiers, what was at risk, I have here a panoramic photograph of a military regiment. This is World War I, and this is a military regiment in Canada. I'm going to get my computer in there, and they don't want to. All right, there we go. Also, I have a military group. I'm moving it over here. Okay, I have a military group over here. This is at Camp Devens in Ayer, Massachusetts. So you can understand by seeing these photographs, this is one company. One company. They all lived in that barracks. All right, so you can understand why the influenza affected so many servicemen during World War I in 1918. All right, now let's see if I can get this back there. There we go. They're good? All right, Bethlehem. Miss Lillian Doyle of Nashua in Bethlehem, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Jerry Doyle, died Saturday afternoon in a Boston hospital following a brief illness. She had been studying law at Boston University following her graduation from Nashua High School and had been admitted to the Massachusetts bar 8 days before her death. She was stricken with Spanish influenza, which developed into pneumonia. Sounds familiar. Her father, who is a prominent lawyer and politician, leases a summer residence in Bethlehem, where Miss Doyle had often spent her summers with her parents. Okay. Red Cross notes. Okay. Does this ring a bell, folks? What's happening and what you've seen in the paper about people sewing for masks and personal protective equipment? Red Cross notes a special call has come to the Red Cross to rush work on pajamas and gowns, as there is a great need of many extra garments now because of influenza. Will not every woman of Littleton make a little sacrifice and help out on the sewing? Now is the time to see whether local women can mobilize at short notice or not. You have to remember, this is the year before women got the right to vote. It wasn't a feminist world at that time, all right, and just an interesting thing. But think about the sewing that's happening now. Littleton, Mrs. Fred Bowman, who has been ill with bronchitis and influenza, is now improving favorably. I put this in. I want everyone watching or listening to understand that not everyone died. Haverhill, Lenny Stevens is the first victim of Spanish influenza. Woodsville, Reverend J. Eugene Belford is seriously ill at the Cottage Hospital with Spanish influenza. He is under the care of a trained nurse. I guess that must have been important to be under the care of a trained nurse. Next under Woodsville, owing to the large majority of the students who are ill with Spanish influenza, it has been found necessary to close both the school buildings, and all children under 16 years of age are forbidden to leave their own yards for the remaining of the week. You like that? All children under age 16 are forbidden to leave their own yards for the remainder of the week. Okay, social distancing. Well, hey, this isn't too bad. I'm keeping it to about a half an hour. Upcoming events. Are you ready? A Boy Named Charlie. These are a series of dramatic readings of correspondence between Charles Carpenter and his parents, 1916 to 1918. The story of a young man's life as he strikes out on his own to make good during World War I. Looped slideshow of Charlie, his home on Bronson Street, and his family. A life taken at 22 by pneumonia while stationed in France. 10 to 15 minutes and done on a daily basis, except Wednesday and Saturday, because I'll be down here. Starting this Sunday at 1 o'clock, live on Facebook. It's wonderful, absolutely a wonderful collection of letters. And there it is, A Boy Named Charlie. And Marie, I know you're watching, and I told you your name would be coming up later. So Marie has been wonderful. Marie has the original letters that were written by Charles Carpenter and his family. Also, she has lent me, or actually scanned and sent photographs. So I have a loop. So as I read letters and you hear names like Inez, Richard, Fanny, you will be seeing their photographs. You will see what they looked like. You will see where they lived. All right? So you'll be able to put a face with a name. And that's what I'm hoping to do. Now, these programs will be done from my living room, because I can stay home and do it. Oh, yes, and don't forget David. David Taylor, who is Marie's cousin, who took the collection, photocopied all the original letters, and then typed and transcribed with the help of his wife and another person. So I have the typed transcriptions. On Wednesday, April 1st, 10:30, the influenza pandemic. We are going to start with October 1918. Now remember, there were 192 hits on the word influenza for that month. That's going to be a longer show than 29 minutes. Tune in, share, watch later. And as I put here, it'll probably take more than 20 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very, very much. I hope you enjoy the program. I hope you're getting something out of it. It's a nice divergence, and before I shut down, I'm just going to do a little bit of a swing. There's a World War I uniform right there. Isn't that cool? There's the original sign. Remember I showed you a photograph of the Kilburn School? We have the sign. And you see there's a collection of bells? I'm going to go this way. There's a bell in that showcase. That belonged to Daisy Bronson, and there's a picture of Daisy below it. And then we have the art section coming around. All right. I've shut off some of the lights, so it looks dark over there. I figured if I'm down here, I'm not going to put the heat on. And there we go. We have the sleigh. I'm going to do a program on that. Sleigh was made right here in Littleton. All right. So anyway, I'm going to try to do this almost semi-professionally, and it's not going to happen. There we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dick Alberini signing off. Thank you for watching. Tune in tomorrow at around 1 o'clock for about a 10-minute reading on Charlie. You're going to find the letters are absolutely incredible, and it opens up a window into the early 1900s, into 1916 through 1918. You'll be fascinated. I know I am. Thank you.